Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time in music. I think it's also a really scary time. Creativity is booming with the advent of AI, and it's just easier to be a creator. But like at the same time, that means competition is increasing. Cut through to finding that 10,000, 100,000 loyal base, and that's then a platform you can build a real career around. Yeah, I think failure is a badge of honor as long as you learn from it.
So hi everyone, I'm Alex Brees, founder of Unheard Music, and welcome to Find Your Frequency, the podcast where we talk to people who built something from nothing. Artists, founders, investors, all united by that same obsession of how do you get people to care, which is a big problem in a world where there's so much competition and so much distraction. And I'm really excited here to have Matt Spetzler. So from a small town in West Virginia, southwestern Virginia, to closing $5 billion worth of music deals from London. So Matt didn't grow up in the music business necessarily, but he fought and bought his way to the top. So Matt, welcome to Find Your Frequency.
Thank you, Alex.
And I want to take it right back to the start. So, when you were growing up, did you ever envision, coming to London and not just working in finance specifically, but really focusing your career on the music side?
Not at all. Not even the least bit. Like, to me, music was something that started off as my parents, my German father, forcing me to do every day, and having to rebel and go into a band and rock instead. And it was always a hobby, right? I never thought of it as a business. I thought I was going to be an engineer. Like, that's where I went to school to do. I spent my whole time in college building actually off-road cars and amphibious vehicles, and that was like my first taste of building an organization. We started it from scratch, and ultimately, that was where I built my first business, was with the machine shop. We didn't have, a lot. And a friend and I designed some wine rack out of the wood we made, that cantilevered bottles off of it, and gave it to our parents, and people liked it. And then, some people started to buy them and asked to buy them. We hired somebody to produce them, and we were in trendsetters.com in like the late 90s, as being a cool new brand, but furniture is a tough business. And I had to get a real job, and I was not as successful as entrepreneur as you. So I had a long road to try to revisit it, 20 years later.
Wow. And was there, so you always had the entrepreneurial spirit, it sounds like.
Say so, yeah.
And do you think that translates into being on the other side of the fence in terms of what you do now?
For sure. Like, I think it's about the road to music. Like, my road was from engineering to business to then technology investing. Like, I was lucky enough to join a firm in 2004 called Francisco Partners, and it was our first. It was they were starting up, but I was just the grunt, and thought I'd be there a year, and was lucky enough to be there for 20 years, and became one of the most successful investing firms, kind of at the intersection of technology and business. And it was, there that I discovered over the last decade that like music could actually fit in that, in today's world, it can also fit in that. And I thought of it as, transitioning from a hobby to, it was really the realization that maybe I could build something with my skill set of understanding tech, understanding how businesses work, and then starting to be a student and understanding how music works. How kind of we take that forward, how I end up here, like, and deciding to take my whole life in that direction is a bit of a windy road, but a fun one.
And what was it about music that Francisco Partners or yourself driving that saw as a big opportunity space?
Yeah, I don't know that Francisco Partners really liked it, but our job there was a very entrepreneurial firm, right? Our job was to go find where is there a thesis that we think we could take what we were good at, which is kind of the technology business, and help kind of drive change and value. And we did a lot in like healthcare in the U.S. Super complicated ecosystem. Who pays who, how it works, like, is very backwards, and FP had a 20-year career of helping solve that complex world with technology to drive better outcomes. I kind of looked at the music world as the same thing once you start to uncover it. Like, you peel the onion back, like, why is there a master, and why is it publishing different? Like, why is, a song monetized in like 5 different ways? Wait, and like the same person doesn't pay it, so it isn't being collected. Like, you don't even know, where the money's going. It takes you a year to get paid after it's on like Spotify, like instead of right in your pocket. Like, starting to unpick that, you realize like, the music industry is, still stuck in some old ways.
Mm-hmm.
The complexity is analogous to, payment systems. Like we owned a Verifone at FP, and I started to just, understand more and more, and found, frankly, something that was more fun than I was doing on, a day-to-day B2B SaaS software business or payments business, but also a real opportunity. Because there weren't that many people that understood how, technology works, understood, finance and business, and more of music seems to be going that way. But I became a student of how do you make money in music? Like, studied, spending years, lots of consulting, lots of talking to different companies, like, how does the money actually flow?
Yeah.
And trying to find a way that, like, ultimately you can, make that something better for, the artist and the creator. And I believe if you do that and enable that, then you'll win on the business side as well.
And can I ask you a question that you said about it was more fun,
Yeah.
Working in music, which, I think I found a similar thing. I came from the tech world as an analyst, working in automotive tech, so very different. But music was fun because it was sort of community-based. It's, everyone listens to it. And then what I found sort of working in the industry is that sometimes it's almost looked at from investors, not all the time, but sometimes, as like the people that are running the businesses are creative and maybe sort of one step away from the numbers, and it's a bit fluffy. How have you navigated that? Have you seen that, or actually do you find that, those that do cut through are super sharp and they are switched on to the numbers and they can build a good business?
Yeah, look, I think if you look at the guards of who are running many of the music companies around the world, it's, been changing. There's always been one generational change, I think, to the leaders now. And I think it is changing, and accelerating in many ways. And yes, as I look at it from the outside, I think the beauty of it, the attraction is it's art, right? It's creative. Like, to me, that's what draws me in. It's like the balance of the, creative and art. But how do you apply what gives me gratitude is how do you apply the business to it to help, realize the benefit of the art. And it's like, I see people approach it all the time, like it's just spreadsheets and numbers. And the reality is you can add them all together. And frankly, I made some of these mistakes, in my first early years here as well, of like just looking at the spreadsheet and saying it's just like every other industry. And, we put in the wrong leadership that, had done it before in different industries, and, third time's a charm, and failed.
Yeah.
Why? Because that empathy and connectivity, especially if you're in the artist kind of service world, is the important part, right? It's, if you can hide the complexity and get the engine room working, and, get the technology and get the, business working for them, but if you don't have that empathy, you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
Because the artists vote with their feet very quickly.
That's really interesting. I mean, it's such a powerful point with regards to the audience that you're reaching as well, as the way they see the businesses in a more creative manner, perhaps. And you talked there about, you joined Francisco Partners as a grunt, I think you said, right at the bottom, working your way up. And then obviously now looking at the deals you've done, Kobalt Music Group, $5 billion worth of deals. How did you go on, do you think, and win those deals? Because you touched on it again, is it being more of a spreadsheet game on the investment side? Do the numbers add up? But there's got to be a relationship there to win the deals and ultimately prove that you're the right investor or partner. How do you think you sort of navigated that?
Yeah, I think, that in many ways, some of my team would say is my specialty or superpower. I've focused on really investing, with founders, and hopefully in a way that's a win-win and trust.
Yeah.
Like, at the world, yes, I've been lucky enough to be in large, billion plus things. But at the end of the day, Kobalt only got done because Willard said, I trust kind of Matt and the team would be a good steward. He had, a veto and a right to say no, right? And so how do you do that? You have to build trust, right? You have to have understanding.
Yeah.
right? You can imagine how many times people sit on the other side of the table, and I see it now, and they come in like, "Oh, music's great. It's so big. It's, it's fun. Let's go do it." Like you have a conversation, and they have no idea like what music is.
Yeah.
They have no idea how money flows in it. They have no idea like the empathy for the artist. And so it's all about, it's like any other business. It's building trust,
Yeah.
building credibility,
Yeah.
having a track record.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at a business now where the management team has a big say. What do I do? I gave them every CEO I've worked with. It's like call any one of them. Some of them worked, some of them didn't, some of them, we had to go through and said, but you have to do your diligence on the flip side.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a combination of A, hopefully be able to build that trust. B, specialization. It's like for the last 10 years, it's almost everything I've done.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm always learning new things.
Yeah.
But like that's all I do is on this one mission to like, try to, ultimately improve things, for the artists and make the industry a little bit better.
Yeah.
I don't know if it can change that much. And then, the last is, have the credibility and capability, to make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's where I get the big joy is seeing, companies and organizations do things they never thought they could do.
Yeah.
When they have the right alignment, they have the right resources, they have the right kind of help around the table.
And is there something in there that you think does help a business see that step change in growth? Because I see lots of businesses who are pushing forward. It's almost like they're 2Xing, they're pushing forward, they're working harder and they're seeing those incremental gains. But obviously when you go in, obviously you can make big changes and you can cause, you can achieve the alignment and then perhaps cause that step change. Mm-hmm. Is there something that you see that can usually drive that incremental growth that you're looking for? Does it over-index on team? Is it right partners? Is it the connections that you can make after doing the deal?
Look, there's no one recipe for everything. If there was, then it would be easy, right? That's what makes it fun and challenging, right? Yeah. But there's some simple things, right? Businesses are living organisms, right? You've been through this, right? Everybody shows up day one as an entrepreneur and says, I'm going to be, the next Spotify or the next Google, and it's easy, right? The reality is, okay, now I have to go, I have to raise some money. I have to hire a team. Some of the people are going to work out, some aren't. If everything doesn't go to plan, I got to raise money again. And what happens, we're not, and I'm not like the VC investor in the very beginning. That's not where we've been successful. Yeah. Where been really successful is once you already have traction, once you already have a established base. It's how do you not make the same mistakes? Yeah. I've been lucky enough to be on, 20 plus boards of businesses from tens of millions to billions of revenue. I've had the learning through our firm of hundreds of those. And you'd be surprised, people make the same mistakes. We're humans. We make mistakes. Yeah. And so it's more, how do you help bring alignment? So many times we've come in, into businesses like in a Soundtrack, they had a great business, great board. Yeah. They sell to hotels and restaurants. Yeah. COVID is tough. Yeah. Had to get some, rescue financing. People helped them out. But, they've been around 20 years. The VCs aren't going to make a good return. Nobody was really into the music industry. You can't help. We just, say, now there's 3 people in the room. We can make a decision. Let's push forward. Very simple strategy. Let's bring you the resources and connections to execute. Yeah. We can bring you some of the money. We can bring you the industry connections. And it just works better. Yeah. and that's like, I think the big unlock is that alignment and then the resources to help.
And how do you nurture your network? Because, you talked there about getting in a room at Soundtrack, 3 of you, there's a network that we can bring in to help unlock capital. You've introduced me to some incredible people in the music industry, which I'm very grateful for. And so I'm interested in, and you mentioned it before, is that it's taken you sort of 10, 15 years at Francisco Partners to sort of build the trust and the loyalty. Yeah. Is there, I'm thinking of the audience, is there a shortcut to building that network of trusted partners who can help other businesses? Or is it purely a game of, not even a game, but a time thing, and acting with honesty, integrity, really doubling down on your knowledge base, and it just takes time?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no shortcut. I was lucky, to be at the seat in a large investment fund that had, 50 billion behind it. So that helped with opening the initial doors.
Yeah.
Right. And that kind of allowed me to, look at many of the larger music businesses and start to get to know.
Yeah.
But the network ultimately comes from the same things, and it takes time. It's building trust. It's building credibility. It's doing the extra thing.
Yeah.
Right. And doing it repeatedly.
Yeah.
And so when you have a conversation, are you giving back?
Yeah.
Right. Are you always sucking or trying to get something from someone?
Yeah.
Or are you actually giving them something back? And if you can foster something that when someone, I call and hopefully they think it's going to be a worthwhile conversation, that's really valuable.
Yeah.
And you can't do it with everyone.
Yeah.
So like you need to pick and choose because, who are that sphere of 10, 20 people you think are really important.
Yeah.
And look, it's a great, there's great people in the music industry too. I find it, then starts to become friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And, that's hard to break into, as an outsider myself. But I think also, probably I feel like now finally have our legs in that.
Yeah. It's interesting. This morning we played a bit of paddle, and I was actually quite nervous because I sometimes think when, like for example, with people like you or whoever else we're around, I've got to offer something back. And obviously I don't have the experience necessarily. I don't necessarily have the credentials. Hopefully I do soon. And so I sometimes get a little bit nervous about that value exchange. What should I say? What shouldn't I say? And actually, I just end up being a bit more introverted. But how do you think someone who is maybe starting out in this and trying to build a network can ensure that they can have one of those fair value exchanges and start to build their own network?
But look, I think, Alex, I'd say to you and from everybody, you do have something to bring. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you have fought the fight, more than anyone on behalf of artists and, trying to build a business and have done a great job at, as I've watched, over the years at Unheard, with a couple arms behind your back. Right. And, you embody that. Right. And you'd be surprised how many people, want to hear from it because you're on the front lines. Right. And most of the people here are on the front lines.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And yes, if we're sitting in an ivory tower and making decisions from a boardroom, you don't have that connectivity. So I'd say everyone has something to add, right? You should have the confidence to do that.
Yes.
But it should have come across also as like, you're dictating or, grabbing, right?
Yes.
And so I think that, everyone to be successful, I think you need to have that confidence in you're creating something and doing something well.
Yeah.
But you also need to figure out what is it that you know.
Yeah.
Even if you're an A&R person, you know a couple cool people and you've had a good experience and you'll have successes and you'll have failures and learn from them.
Yeah.
But other people want to learn from that too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I always want to hear what's happening on the front line, because I don't have as close a connectivity to that. But that's where every day artists, are making decisions, careers are being made. And, if you're in publishing, which is like 2 layers behind, that's a different view. If I'm in, a DSP world, that's like a completely different view. So, you have it.
Yeah.
I know that's what you do. And I would encourage other people, like, you have it and don't be shy.
Yeah.
Like I was at some big dinner and the head of one of the big football teams was there and the wife of a lady was, about bringing, NBA here. And like, I just went up and talked to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were like so nervous. It's like, it's like people are fundamentally people.
Yes.
Whether they're in an ivory tower, or they're sitting there, cleaning up after a gig, like we're all human.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's, we still are rewarded for initiative. We're still rewarded for innovation. I think we're still rewarded for caring.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And thank you. I feel a bit better now. And what's interesting there in terms of getting closer to people is, our first value is putting artists first all the time, or all the time. And for me, that's the hardest value to live by because when you're running a business, like I don't want to say at the top, but when you're sort of trying to drive it forward, and you're managing shareholders, you're managing the P&L, you get further and further away from actually who you're doing this for. So I think dragging, we've got a company meeting next week, and I'm going to say, one of the things I want to do better is really get closer and closer to our artist community because ultimately they're going to inform what we should be building. To your point, getting to know people like myself who are building, that gives you the understanding of what people are building. But for us, it's about, getting closer to the artists. And just fast forwarding a little bit. So we talked about Francisco Partners and your journey sort of into music. And now you have pipeline and jamming capital. Just talking on the investment side still, and then going over to the operator side. For jamming, your thesis is slightly different, I think, to what you had at FP.
Yeah.
What are the things that you're looking for now? And if there are other founders out there who are building businesses and looking for investment, what are the things that they should be thinking about in the current economic climate, I guess, to be attractive to you or other investors similar to you?
Yeah, I think we, made the decision, and for privilege that I was at a great firm, a great platform, one of the most successful private equity firms, but they need to do things that are $1 billion deals that are there's not that many in music. I had some things more personally in life that make you realize like life's short. You can't rewind as much as you want to at times. And so, did what I thought a lot about and done a lot on kind of the side is, took the plunge and decided to start our own firm. And that's I'm doing it with the, 20 years of having, been on the other side of telling people, and advising them on how to run their business. And then we went and started a business, the pipeline. So I'd say jamming, it's clear. This is kind of a family office. It's an investment firm. We don't have, rigid rules. We can invest in smaller businesses. We can invest in, large businesses. But I do think we said ultimately you have to bring value back to the artist, creator, or IP owner. Now in today's world, they're not always the same, for better or worse. We need to do things where our superpowers of understanding, how the business of music works, understanding tech, and understanding business building is our intersection. And that's all we're going to do. We're going to do that in media. We do it across music. We do some in sports. We do some in the new media areas. But that's fun, right? Because that gives me energy. That's great in life, and we're a small team that's fully focused on that. Starting a business pipeline wasn't in the plans, and so I was like really thinking it's great, you could do it, and so that's been a journey.
Okay. So it's been a journey in the sense that I guess. I mean, it's so different to what you were doing in some senses, isn't it? And the way I was thinking about it is and I might be wrong here, but I was thinking about it on the way here in terms of rhythm. And things that I really struggle with is if I'm in a rhythm of doing a specific task each day, if suddenly I have to, and Sam will know this, who's sat here, he's asking me to create some TikTok content in the morning, which I know I need to do. And it's really easy to do, but I just can't get into the rhythm of it because it's different to what I'm used to. No. Would you say that that's sort of been a similar feeling with the transition over to operator side, or is it something slightly different?
It is very different. It's very humbling. It's being an investor is a privileged seat, right? And maybe I have a little bit too much ADD. I always had 5 or 6 companies are working on it at a time, and my job is to really be a resource to the management team. But I'm not the doer in that capacity, right? It's the management team that does the hard work, and the employees that deserve all the credit. This time, starting a business, right? It's back to zero, and you need to hire a team. You need to put together what's the accounting policy, what's the travel insurance policy, and I'm doing that while still juggling, the investment side. And yes, I think it gives you more empathy for people like you because it's hard.
Yeah.
And I think as a operator, you have to make 10 or 20 decisions a day.
Yeah.
Right, and each of those decisions may not be huge decisions, but they all add up to creating it. You have to create culture.
Yeah.
Right? People want to work with you.
Yeah.
And in some ways in Pipeline, we're kind of trying to invent something slightly new. It's like, how do we allow independents to have the same kind of resources and access to capital as some of the larger businesses? But what's the product market fit? We struggle with that at times. And so I think it's both exciting and fun, right? It gives you energy, but it's also humbling. And you have to recognize you're not going to get everything right.
Yeah. And I think velocity of decision making and making those mistakes quickly and forgetting about them, it's definitely something that I had to learn very quickly, because often, at the start in particular, we'd make a mistake and then I'd sort of sit on it for a few days and think, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or how can we change it? But actually over the last few years, I've learned to just make the decision. If we fail, let's fail fast.
Yep.
And also to trust your instinct and gut. Going back to the point I made earlier, I suppose, about feeling a bit nervous when speaking to people who are more senior than I am and more experienced than I am. I think trusting your gut was something, again, that I grappled with, especially early on, because we had more senior people in the room who were ultimately could make, decisions that were smarter based on their experience, but it just didn't feel right. So that's definitely been something that we've.
And look, you're, in this case, the founder and the CEO. So ultimately, your product and audience, which should best. So I agree. I had someone told me recently, the first time I heard it, a good leader or a good CEO is the calculation of speed of decision making multiplied by the quality of that decision making, how much they're right. But you have to have both to be ultimately successful. And I think you're right. Failing fast is much better than slowly getting the right way.
Yeah.
Because we're in a very competitive world, and music is only getting more competitive.
Yeah. We find that on we're on the sharp end of it in terms of trying to capture the artist's attention. Yeah. And we say this all the time: 150,000+ tracks every day, but 200+ million content creators also washing the socials with content. It's incredibly challenging to cut through the noise, both for an artist, but also businesses, legitimate businesses trying to serve the artist community. Are there any? Your Pipeline is serving a slightly different customer necessarily than a direct artist. Are there any sort of values that you're living by, or I guess anything you're thinking about when it comes to reaching the audience? This podcast really wants to be about building the audience, building a community. Is there anything that you think about there with Pipeline? Obviously, it's a slightly different community than an artist community that will help.
Yeah, I would say from a Pipeline side, our focus is really on the independents. Now, Pipeline's really built today to service. Our view is, it's not our job to go choose artists. Our job is to back the labels and distributors and people like on Hurd that are on the front line with the artists and empower them.
Yeah.
It's like, because if I looked at the outside world, I'd have a privileged seat where I've invested $5 or $6 billion in just music IP rights, right? And buying songs, but a lot of those get ultimately sucked up into whoever's kind of buying them. But the same thing happens in advances. Most of the artists go where the biggest advance is. Partly because that advance means they believe in them, but a lot of it is money talks. And so to me, it was the realization like, it should actually be the quality of artists, the quality of the songs, the quality of IP that dictates, who wins.
Interesting.
And that was the premise between building Pipelines. If we can kind of help companies unlock the value of that IP by providing financing against it, tools against it, then hopefully we can unlock, a level play field. And then it's about the relationships. It's about the art. It's about who can kind of create the wins. And that was a premise there. So we're trying to create a community around that. Right, we're working a lot with Merlin. We're working, starting to work on the publishing side and saying how can we bring to that community better tools, because technology is often not their forte, and data and ability to make those decisions, and some of the financing, because I think those are the hardest things when we talk to them.
How do you you mentioned there about the quality of the IP? How do you define the quality of the IP? As in, do you use the numbers to back that up to say if people are consuming this, it's good?
Yeah.
Or do you have a more of a softer, creative A&R type approach as well on top of that to say, well, the music's great, but maybe it just hasn't got there yet, and you can build that into the calculation?
So I'd say yes and no. So at least the way we're looking at it, like in the world of finance, risk and reward. So if something is going to be good, but you don't know, that's higher risk. Yeah. Right? It should be higher reward. Yeah. That's essentially, frontline labels are almost like the venture capital business. 1 in 50 artists work out. Unfortunately, the other 49 pay as well. Yeah. But that's how, music. So we look at it as if we can provide low cost capital, it has to be lower risk. Yeah. And so fundamentally, we underwrite the IP that's already being monetized. Yeah. Okay. And at least that's conscious. At least effort in the beginning to say, we can see that we built a lot of forecasting algorithms and stuff, and so we can give you lower than you could get, somewhere else, or from a bank, or that's frankly available in the market. Yeah, I think at some point now they would take that and hopefully use it on the front line where they have the taste. Yeah, because I don't know what's cool, and definitely don't know what's like going to be there for which artists and others, and I feel like that's not our role. That's what we want to back. Okay. The end of it, the indie community to ultimately do. And
something that we're focused on Hurd is really allowing an artist to own their audience in some senses and own their IP and build their career without needing to leverage necessarily, as many third-party tools as they would have to previously. And we're seeing other businesses do the same thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's OpenStage, who are doing a great job in sort of community management, fan engagement, whether it's us on the amplification, Laylo, another example of people doing that. How do you see that transition, I suppose, from an artist being somewhat a slave, I guess, to a major label? I don't know if I can say that, but anyway, through to now actually owning what they're doing and having more control over what they're doing.
Yeah.
You see the big players doing it, Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift, whatever it might be. But how do you see that?
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time in music. I think it's also a really scary time. Creativity is booming with the advent of AI, and it's just easier to be a creator. But like at the same time, that means competition is increasing. So you're right. I think today the interesting thing though, as an artist or as a creator, you don't need to sell your soul and give up all of your future to try to get discovered.
Yeah.
Now you do need to work hard.
Yeah.
You need to probably have some luck. But you need to both be a creator. You also need to be somewhat a business owner.
Yeah.
And that ownership is of you as a brand, right? You as a creator. And what my suggestions are, like places like Unheard, places like there's a lot of other places you can help with like the marketing side.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing that has to happen is obviously create the art, create the music, create the ultimate thing, whether it's video or just audio. Then you ultimately need to find an audience. But what's cool in today's world, there's starting to become tools where like it's not about being famous. It's about finding a loyal community that can follow you.
Yeah.
If you have 100,000 fans and they each spend $100 on you in a year, you're making 10 million.
Yeah.
That's probably pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? Where is money made for artists today? It's usually in touring. But now there's a lot of platforms where you can get direct engagement, right? You can do it. And so I think the main thing I'd say is don't sell your IP in some ways. Like if you can create and own the assets, if you become successful, that's your retirement plan. That's your plan for you and your family, because that recurrence of a loyal fan base coming back to listen to your art and your music again is the most valuable asset.
Yeah.
Now, how do you create that? You need to work hard.
Yeah.
Right? You need to find what's your niche. You need to create some audience. You need to use, some marketing. You need to probably play some live. You need to find a way to get on social. You need to find, how to cut through a little bit. But my advice is don't try to cut through to making the millions.
Yeah.
Cut through to finding that, 10,000, 100,000 loyal base.
Yeah.
And that's then a platform you can build a real career around.
Yeah, completely. And we're seeing more and more now artists coming to us where 3 years ago it was, how do I get 1 million streams in week one? And so we would try and build a plan around that for the artist. And now it's, okay, how can I make £50,000 this year? And actually it's such a creative conversation, because before it was like, okay, a bit of playlisting and blah, blah.
Yeah.
Now it's so much broader and so much more creative. And you're then talking about bringing fans down their marketing funnel into a WhatsApp group, or nurturing fans in your email list better than you had before, which is, in my opinion, far more interesting and, to your point, exciting, I think, for artists.
Yeah, know who your fans are. That connectivity layer was just, disintermediated by the labels and distributors. That's their moat, right? If they know who you are, and frankly, sometimes they don't know because the DSPs know it.
Yeah.
But with today's tools and whether it's social, and you talked about some of the CRM or others, you can find that connectivity. If you have that direct connectivity, you can do a lot more.
Yeah.
Right. And you can cut out, between, your art and ultimately getting paid on Spotify, there's people taking most of that.
Yeah.
And if you can find a way to close that gap, you can start to build something, that is a career.
Yeah. And, we work with artists like Imogen Heap, who we've been doing a lot of work with recently, who is absolutely brilliant at that.
Yeah, she's great.
She completely understands her audience, and she has an app that you can sign into, and you can be part of sort of her community, or she does lots of live streaming, and she really sort of involves her fans in that building. So there are lots of good examples out there for artists to follow. And I think also what we see is when we see an artist who is truly creative and they are doing that consistently, and they are treating this like almost like a business without sucking the creativity out of it, almost like a business. We see those people succeed, but it takes time.
Yep.
You know, so and it's similar with building a business, I guess, is that, you know, it's very rare for you to start something and in 2 years you've sold it, happy days, off to the beach. But and I think it's the same on the music side, right? Is it takes 5, 10, 15 years to do this.
Yeah, I mean, even the biggest artists that have broken through in the last couple of years have taken many, many years, like Sabrina Carpenter or a number of other examples. The other thing I'd say is the music industry was built on disaggregating your rights and monetizing them in different ways. You know, you had your masters over here, your publishing over here, you had neighbor rights over here, and you can collect. I think in today's world, especially in the world of AI, there's a lot of value to having them together. And you can actually do many more creative things. You know, how do you get a sync? Well, it's only if they're together, you can make one decision. Yeah. You know, I see so many issues where like someone wants to come to a commercial with a song and you can't get the 5 songwriters to agree, or the one master doesn't want it. And they would like, there's so much. So if you can keep, like, if you were to build a music company from scratch and redo it, it would be very different. It's really an artist inc. Yeah. Right. It's really working with your manager yourself to monetize everything together. Yeah. Right. You have merch, you have branding, you have social, you have your publishing rights along with your neighbor rights, along with your masters all together. And I think people don't, they run after the first thing that gives them something. Yeah. And then they start to split things, and that becomes much harder down the road. Yeah. So I think that's coming, right? I think I've seen a lot of investment and try to get behind kind of the empowering effectively the managers to, be able to run and manage their own business. But I think it's only going to become more valuable to be able to touch all of it kind of together. Yeah.
I think that highlights a little bit the importance of building a team, and and it doesn't have to be a full-time team, but having those people within your network you can call upon to say, hey, I don't really understand publishing or master rights, or can you help me? Yeah. Because it is challenging, and I empathize with artists, and I hope that this allows me to connect. And I think it allows me to connect with artists more effectively because we're sort of doing the same thing. I'm less creative and talented, without a doubt, on the music side. My mum forced me to play the cello when I was younger, but I wasn't really very good. And so I really do understand what they're having to go through in terms of building their audience, building their business. And I hope that allows us to be able to share things on this pod in particular that will help them build that audience and build that community. And then just a question that I wanted to almost end on, and then we'll dip into some community questions, is if you were to go back to the start, knowing that where you are today is the place that you want to get to, perhaps, how would you go about building that career? Would you take the same path, or are there things maybe where you could, given the current climate and given what you know now, where maybe you could fast track or take a different route to where you got to today?
That's a good question. Like, I flip around, like, what do I tell my kids they should be trying to do? Like, look, AI is a huge thing, right? It's an enabler that didn't exist when, you're getting started. Like, I see it every day in my companies where we've done more in the last couple of weeks than, in the last year in some ways. Yeah. So I think you need to be cognizant of that. So if I was to go about it again, I think, maybe I wouldn't have failed at my first, startup. Yeah. All I made was holiday presents after a while. I think that, what's ultimately in an AI world valued is still judgment. It's still human connection. I'm spending a lot of time at live events now because I think that human connection is, not going to go away. If anything, it's going to be yearned for more. And you learn by failing, right? And you learn by life experiences. So I think the path there, I got lucky in a few breaks. I worked my ass off. I worked 80 hours a week for many years, trying to like differentiate myself and do it. And I still work till, late at night, almost every night, because I'm trying to, do it again as an entrepreneur and trying to, create that hustle. So it doesn't land in your lap. Is number one. And I think there's different paths. I think you can start a business, you can be successful in it, you can fail in it, but you can take that then to build upon it. Yeah. And I don't think there's shortcuts unless you wake up with $1 billion and want to go, become a magic investor. That's one path, but I wasn't given it. Most people aren't. Yeah. So I'd say at the end of the day, there's no substitute to kind of the hard work. There's no substitute to Ultimately building judgment by learning from others and failing yourself. And, it takes a little bit of luck too.
Yeah. On the failure piece
Yeah.
is, I'm interested in this because what I see and this is only what I hear, but in the US, for example, you do your startup, it doesn't work, and people would look at that and go, you gave it a go, you've learned a lot, let's go again. Whereas it feels like in the UK, from what I've heard, is the failure is like that maybe looked on slightly differently. Where do you stand on that? You're based in the UK, so you might see businesses in the UK fail. And
Yeah. Look, I have probably more the American mentality. I grew up in Silicon Valley. My father was an immigrant, though, from Germany. I think failure is a badge of honor as long as you learn from it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I spent a lot of time working with, people at higher levels and even governments looking at, how do you build a successful Silicon Valley, right? I worked in Silicon Valley, I lived in San Francisco or down to Stanford and grad school like that. That ecosystem so vibrant, all the other governments, looked at what's happening in Israel or Stockholm or Berlin. And the reality is a lot of it comes down to that culture of failure. Like what doesn't exist in Asia, it's a real stigma to fail, right? Europe's kind of in the middle. I think the UK is better than mainland Europe. But yes, if you take away that stigma of failure and use it as a way to learn judgment and build, then I think you can create something great, both as a career and ultimately a business.
Yeah, and I agree. I think if I look back on the last 5 years of Unheard, is I have failed so many times, micro failures, and but I've learned so much.
Yeah.
And I hope to build a big business with Unheard, and I think the trajectory is good. But if it wasn't to work, I would say I would be a good bet for the next one, because of what I've experienced. But
I agree. I 100% agree. Yeah. Like I think I've even thought it before in the past. Probably shouldn't say it, but yes, I think you would be a great CEO for another business because of the learning you've had.
Yeah.
Right. And because it's not easy, but you appreciate that now.
Yes.
Right. And if you go talk to, talk about doing the investor world or how do you get there, like you can empathize.
Yeah.
You can probably give some advice.
Yeah.
Like you've had the, learning of one, run, but like, if you look at your seat in 20 years or the privileged place I've had of doing it over 20 companies, it's that kind of advantage and empathy and learning that you can bring to the next stage to make it more successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's all about the chance of success. Nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. And I think the only thing you can guarantee, which I always say, is I'll work hard. That's the only thing you can really guarantee, isn't it? That you will work hard and try and make the best decisions possible. Just onto a couple of community questions from the Unheard community. So one from CJ Snaii. What would you tell an independent artist today to focus on if their goal isn't just fame, but building a career investors would actually believe in?
That's a good question. Look, I think we touched on a bit of it, but I think you have to be both a student of the art and create your art and hopefully have something unique that people want to listen to, but you have to be also a student of the business of music. And I think the business of music today is very different. It's as an independent, and with the tools that are there today, you can actually control it yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that'll work for some people, or you may want to work with a label or to help you, do that, or some of the label services companies that are kind of the in-between. But ultimately, you need to think of yourself as a 360 thing. Like how sit down, like create your own business plan.
Yeah.
Use ChatGPT. Like it's amazing what they can do to help create your own business plan. But have a plan for your socials. Have a plan for how you're going to develop that. I think core community that comes to you. And I think you said it well. It's not the fame. Like you can buy 1 million streams. You could do it tomorrow. I'm sure you could. But are those streams going to stick around?
Yeah.
Are they going to be artists you have a connection with? Are they going to be able to be monetized for your benefit?
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
And so I think I would use the tools that are out there. Find some trusted people who've done it before. And then sometimes it does take extra resources or money to do it, to get discovered, because it doesn't all happen on that lucky, viral moment.
Yeah.
But treat it. And then I'd say otherwise, there's a lot of lost money in music, right? People don't realize, you could collect publishing as an extra 20%.
Yeah.
Or anything else you're doing. Neighboring rights, like, some of the direct stuff on YouTube or others with Content ID. And so, collect all those pennies because they start to become pounds, dollars, you know, and you know, add up over time.
Yeah. And to your point there are good people in the industry. For example, you can always reach out to us as a team. You know, we have an instant chat system. You can hit us up and we'll always come back to you with our thoughts. So there are lots of good people out there.
Yeah, and I'd say that's the same thing. Like, don't be shy.
Yeah.
People love to hear from artists. Like, you're doing what we all want to be able to do.
Yeah.
Right? You have a talent we don't.
Yeah.
Right? That's why we're sitting in you know, the back rooms, not the front room.
Yeah.
I have a lot of keyboards that don't ever get played. But like, you know, don't be shy about it. People want to help you.
Yeah.
Just ask.
And a really nice journey from a platform perspective. Shameless plug for Unheard, but Unheard will help you go from 0 to 1. And then there are platforms like Even that will help you monetize direct to your fan. And then platforms like OpenStage or Laylo, you know, or even WhatsApp, Discord, where you can then manage that community that you fostered.
Yep.
You know, it's quite a simple flow up from a marketing and community building perspective, I suppose. Great question. Next question is from Max Skalla. Regarding AI's evolution in music, what is your biggest red flag today, and what will be the ultimate deciding factor for success in the new music landscape?
Oof. Yeah, I mean, spent this morning talking with the head of one of the DSPs about AI, and like, I mean, it's sitting anywhere from a third to half, you know. Wow. So especially the independent stuff coming through the distributors is now almost AI music. So that's daunting. Now, you said it before, there's 150,000 songs being uploaded before AI.
Yeah.
So, you know, let's not say it was easy before. But at the end of the day, it's a human ear, right? And like, at least I believe that the human ear will determine, you know, not necessarily what's fully human created, but naturally gravitate to the human connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And, you know, does that mean everything's going to be, just artists labeled royalties, or, you know, there's not going to be AI real competition? No. AI is an enabler, first and foremost. Like, it makes creating music easier, and really good music at this point.
Yeah.
But I think that ultimately the careers that are built and the monetization around it will be the people, you know, using it effectively, which even a lot of the, you know, big names are today, but also who's building that connection with, you know, the humans, having the live, having the, you know, fan base, because I don't think that's going to go away. We're not going to start worshiping robots, or computers in the cloud.
Yeah.
You know? But, you know, it makes that 0 to 1 step you're talking about much tougher.
Yeah.
Because you don't know.
Yeah. It's so true. I always see the streaming platforms as like the discovery space. So I would discover my music there, but then I'll become a fan when I hear them doing something BTS, like behind the scenes, or I go and see them live, and then I'm like, I'm in. Like, and then I follow them on Spotify and follow them on socials, and that's where the community piece comes in. So yeah, I totally agree. And then final closing question. So, and we ask this to every guest. When you started, what was the one milestone you wanted to reach, which would represent success? Did you make it, and has that changed now?
Yeah, I'd say when I was younger, you know, I was driven. I wanted to, like, you know, succeed. And I think I put that measurement and yardstick of success probably in a financial term. Like, can I earn X amount by, you know, my age of being 30 or 40, and then, you know, I could be successful and I could, like, you know, go choose what I want to do. And, you know, sitting here today, yes, I was successful. I was lucky. I got, you know, on a rocket ship and maybe helped some of it, but, like, you know, beyond my wildest dreams from, you know, where I started. But, like, it's a very different yardstick today. Like, it's, you know, I'm doing it because I kind of want to make a difference. Like, I want this world, and I told my wife, you know, 5 or 6 years ago, what are you doing in this music world? Like, I think, you know, it was always a New Year's resolution to do more music, or like play more. Like, I play once a year, like for, you know, the Christmas holidays. But, like, you know, to me, it's like, can I leave this place a little better than it started? Right? You know, can we make this music industry a little bit more fair? Right? Can we make this world a little bit better? Right? You know, I think you start to have a different perspective when, you know, both your parents aren't around or get older, or, you know, you have kids.
Yeah.
And so I'd say it's definitely a different yardstick, you know, today. And, you know, still undetermined if you can succeed, but trying to do our bit.
I'm sure I'd say you already have, and I'm sure you'll make an even bigger impact. Thank you so much, Matt. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. Give us a subscribe or a follow, and we'll see you next week.
Yes. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Matt.